Stars today by Chat Sports. Tyler Jones here with you. Thanks for joining us. As on today's show, we are breaking down all the Seattle Seahawks coaching hires so far. We will go through every single staff member that's been hired to this point, tell you more about them and our thoughts on the hirings that have been made in just a matter of moments. Before we do, the coaching staff is not complete. Still a ways to go. If you want Mike Macdonald to hire a great staff the rest of the way, go ahead and like today's video. Don't jinx it. Don't be the reason why Macdonald and Schneider didn't put together a good staff. Trust the science with me on this one, folks. Like the video, we'll get started with today's show. First one, the obvious, Mike Macdonald, your new head coach of the Seattle Seahawks, was hired just about a week ago officially, coming over from the Baltimore Ravens as the defensive coordinator for that team the last two seasons. They were in the AFC Championship game this year. They had the number one defense in the NFL in points per game. They were fantastic. He did a really good job prior to that with the Michigan Wolverines as their defensive coordinator under Jim Harbaugh. The Seahawks go from the oldest head coach in the National Football League to now the youngest in Mike Macdonald, just 36 years of age. And with the energy that he brings to the table, with being a player's coach and such a brilliant defensive mind, the comparisons that he's already starting to draw are to Sean McVay, being dubbed the Sean McVay of defense. And I got to tell you, I know Mike Macdonald has not been the head coach for a single game just yet. But when you draw comparisons like that to somebody like Sean McVay, you're doing something right. I got a really good feeling about this hire. The more we dive into it and discuss Mike Macdonald and get to know him, the more I like this hire, and I already was a fan of it from the very beginning. I think this is going to work out extremely well for the Seahawks. I like the hire. Do you like the hire of Mike Macdonald to Seattle? It's our pinned comment today. Let us know what you think. Y for yes, N for no. Weigh in the comment section. Let us know if you like the hire or not. Today's show is sponsored by Prize Picks. Prize Picks, the place to go for daily fantasy made easy. Here's how it works. Choose two or more players on any given category. Get the choice of more or less, whether you're talking fantasy points, passing yards, receiving yards, rushing yards. Maybe you want to mix and match different leagues, the NFL, the NBA, NHL, and more. Look ahead to the big game this weekend. I got Christian McCaffrey to have more than 88.5 rushing yards, Travis Kelce to have more than 70.5 receiving yards, and George Kittle to have more than 49.5 receiving yards. Let's say I put $20 down and all three of these hit. We're making $100 on Prize Picks. Play along with me during the big game at prizepicks.com/CLNS. Promo code CLNS for a $100 deposit match on your first entry. The link is in the comments and description of today's video. Prize Picks, proud partner of Seahawks Today by Chat Sports. Glad to have them on board here on today's show. The first hiring that Mike Macdonald made on his coaching staff was Leslie Frazier in a role as assistant head coach. Worth noting, he is not defensive coordinator, but he is assistant head coach. And we've been saying that with the Mike Macdonald hiring, that the Seahawks needed to do what they can to find guys with previous coaching experience, right? And that's where Leslie Frazier comes in. He was with the Minnesota Vikings from 2010 to 2013, and prior to that was the defensive coordinator there in Minnesota. And he's been defensive coordinator for a couple different stops with Tampa Bay, with the Buffalo Bills, and he's also been part of a championship caliber defense as well. You go back to the Super Bowl with Peyton Manning and the Indianapolis Colts several years ago. He was a defensive assistant on that championship team. So Leslie Frazier has been there, done that before. He's well respected across the entire NFL, has an excellent track record across the league, and I think having that previous head coaching experience is going to come in huge. Going to be a nice sounding board for Leslie Frazier to for Mike Macdonald to bump off of. To me, I like everything about the Leslie Frazier hire. The special teams coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks will be Jay Harbaugh. Harbaugh is the son of LA Chargers coach Jim Harbaugh, and there was an assumption, an expectation of sorts, that Jay was going to be following his dad, Jim, to the LA Chargers. Ultimately, that did not happen, and he's kind of charting his own path, if you will, by separating from his dad, where he spent 9 seasons on the Michigan coaching staff, and the last 2 as the special teams coordinator for Michigan. And Michigan's special teams unit over his time at Michigan was one of the best special teams units in all of college football, and they had 9 players over the last couple of seasons get selected for 21 different Big Ten honors. And he also has experience at the NFL level, working with the Baltimore Ravens, not to mention that he was a part of a team that won a national championship this year with the Michigan Wolverines. Obviously from a great football family, but also the connection, the familiarity with Mike Macdonald. These guys worked together at Michigan, and they worked together many years ago with the Baltimore Ravens. I think it's so important, not only to make a good hire, but somebody that you could trust. And that's the case here with a guy like Jay Harbaugh coming in. Of the coaching hires so far on this staff, what has been the best that Mike Macdonald and John Schneider have made at this point? Of what we know, of what's already gone down, tell me who you believe is the best hire to this point. For me, it's Leslie Frazier. I like the Jay Harbaugh hire a lot as well. But for me, Leslie Frazier is the correct answer here. What is your answer? Let me know in the comments section who the best hire has been for the Seahawks coaching staff to this point. We are constantly covering the Seattle Seahawks here on Seahawks Today, bringing you daily videos with news and rumors. We're talking about the coaching staff search, trades, free agency, the draft, and more. All sorts of stuff happening here on Seahawks Today. No one is covering this team like we are here on Seahawks Today. We brought you 3 videos on Monday. Why? Because we're built different around here. You got to subscribe. You ain't alive if you ain't subscribed to Seahawks Today. For the latest happenings on your favorite team, we got you covered. Subscribe now for free. You'll be glad you did. A name very familiar to Seattle Seahawks fans. Karl Scott is remaining on the Seahawks coaching staff. He was retained from the previous regime under Pete Carroll. Karl Scott will transition to a role from secondaries coach to now moving in to a senior defensive assistant role with the Seattle Seahawks. And after 2 seasons in Seattle in the secondaries role, moves to the senior assistant role after his experience has mostly been with DBs. A DB coach with the Vikings, also at Alabama, won a national championship with the Alabama Crimson Tide as well. So championship pedigree. And think about this, right? Karl Scott has already worked with Devin Witherspoon and Rick Woolen, and we've seen both those guys just flourish, have had great starts to their career, and the sky is really the limit with Witherspoon and Woolen. And when you see what he's done to work with those guys and some of the young personnel in the secondary, it just makes sense why you would want to keep a guy like Karl Scott around. He deserves it. He deserves to stay and has done a solid job. There was rumblings that he was going to go to the Philadelphia Eagles, that they were interested in him, but ultimately, this is a great call, I think, to keep him around. We'll see if anyone else gets retained, but Karl Scott was certainly deserving to keep his job with the Seahawks team moving to that senior defensive analyst role. The other latest hire for the Seahawks, Kirk Olivad, comes in from the Green Bay Packers, where he will be Seattle's linebackers coach. And this is another name that Mike Macdonald is very familiar with. He goes back quite a ways. Olivadotti most recently was the linebackers coach for the Green Bay Packers. But if you go back several years ago to the early 2010s, Olivadotti was the linebackers coach at Georgia, while Mike Macdonald was a grad assistant there at the University of Georgia when Mark Richt was the head coach. So this is somebody that's known Mike Macdonald since his very beginning, early days in coaching. These two go way back. Now, you look at the Green Bay Packers this past year, that defense was cheeks. Their linebacking core had a lot of issues. And Joe Barry ultimately ended up getting fired, as well as the rest of that coaching staff. there's a reason why the Packers did not want Olivadotti back. Okay? So this is the most puzzling hire for me because of what we saw from the Green Bay Packers with the issues that they had, and Olivadotti was a part of those issues. He's not completely to blame, obviously, but there is some blame on his part. But there is a trust established there with the previous relationship. Macdonald knows Olivadotti, so I'll give him the benefit of the doubt on this one. Of the hirings made, this is my least favorite based on what we saw recently. But the other hires are so good that it makes me feel a little bit better about that one. How would you grade the Seahawks coaching staff so far to this point? I'll give you my grade here in just a second, but want to hear from you guys. A, B, C, D, or F. What do you think of the Seahawks coaching staff at this point? Let us know what you think. My grade, I'm going to go A- here. And it's because of the Olivadotti hire that I'm going A- at this point in time. Love the Leslie Frazier hire. Love the Jay Harbaugh hire. Those things make sense. But the Olivadotti one is a little bit of a head-scratcher, but we'll give the benefit of the doubt to Mike Macdonald because he did so well with the others, and he's very familiar with Olivadotti there. But at this point, Macdonald has Frazier, Harbaugh, Scott, and Olivadotti. Still plenty more. Still got to find an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator. We'll see what ultimately Mike Macdonald does, but he's off to a good start, it would seem, at this point. If you enjoyed today's show, like the video, we certainly would appreciate it. And we shall see you next time, right here on Seahawks Today.